Ooh, Venezuela earthquake, humanitarian crisis. Let's see what's new. The death toll surpasses 1,700 with tens of thousands missing after powerful earthquake devastates Venezuela. Twin major earthquakes around... There's a 7.5 and a 7.2 from my understanding. Struck recently, causing widespread destruction, aftershocks, and overwhelmed rescue efforts hampered by equipment shortages. International aid is arriving, including from Israel. Okay. With survivor stories emerging amid dire conditions. This compounds Venezuela's existing challenges. I mean, like, they've been having some troubles. Raising risks of disease outbreak, displacement, and regional migration pressures. Long-term rebuilding will strain resources and could impact South American stability. Let's see what's new about this one, because I've heard some wild numbers. Let's see what comes up here. Strong aftershock rattles rescue workers in Venezuela. Survivor recounts Venezuela earthquakes. That's probably a good one. Ooh, so this is a little older. This is from 2 days ago. Okay, I think I'm gonna watch those two on the topic. We also want Venezuela earthquake. Let's see what comes up here. Look at how these people fall while at the same time an entire building collapses right in front of them. Ooh. Like, we're gonna get so much more video content out about this, and I think we're seeing that now. Oh, it doesn't have sound. Holy. I mean, all the people running out, good idea. Get out onto the street. That is wild. I wanna see where that building goes down again. That one. That is crazy. Like, there's people in these buildings. This isn't something that they've been able to evacuate beforehand. There wasn't exactly a warning that went out before this happened. What's this one? Watch the man in the blue during the earthquake in Venezuela. He deserves a medal for exceptional bravery. Maybe we'll have volume on this one. We got guy in the blue, we got guy in the blue there. Okay, so this is a gym. So that's the first shock. People start running. Because it gets worse pretty quick. Picks up the kid, runs. I mean, he's got it on. That's his protection far more than anything else. Okay, CCTV footage from inside a home captured the terrifying moment. Powerful 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck Venezuela. This is 2 minutes, so let's try and skip to where. No, they feel it already. You can see it. You can see it. Like, they're probably in an apartment complex. This isn't a matter of, oh, you can run outside here. No, you got to ride this out. Although maybe they are breaking for the exit. Maybe that does look like an exit to the outside right there. So maybe not an apartment complex. Or maybe that's their balcony, I don't know. I mean, their building didn't collapse. And given the severity of the quake, like that's good. Oh, another. Oh, they got cameras in their apartment. So this is a different angle. The kid down here instantly goes, grabs the kid, heads for the exit. Look at the damage. Yeah, that's terrifying. Oh, what's this one? This footage captures the exact moment struck. We've seen this a lot. I mean, we saw that building go down. That was... Yeah, get a little distance. If that one goes down, you're gonna have problems. Oh my goodness. Look at that. They're all moving. All of the whole row of buildings are swaying like that. Like even in the building standing, you're gonna have so much damage. Instant before Venezuela struck multiple. The instant before Venezuela earthquake struck, multiple laser beams scanned the ground below. This video was not filmed before the Venezuela earthquake. The earthquake occurred. The video depicts a nighttime scene and is likely an old video or generated content. That's so dumb. Okay, we've seen that one. We've seen that one. I'm gonna stop this, and we're gonna watch.
We're closely monitoring
the
race to find survivors.
CDC says about this.
In Venezuela is more urgent than ever. Rescuers are searching for those still trapped under ruins 3 days after devastating twin earthquakes. International teams have arrived to help as the crucial window for survival draws to a close.
Yeah, you're approaching the stage where the people you find won't be alive. So you have the first couple days is the most important, where you can still pull living people out of rubble, and then it kind of turns into like a body recovery after that.
This is new video of Spanish emergency workers freeing a woman from the wreckage today. Authorities now say more than 1,400 people are dead as a result of the quakes, with well over 3,000 in.
1,400, I think. What was it? We're up to 1,700. I can set it here. We're up to 1,700 now, and this is only like a day old. Like that number is still gonna rise.
Injured, but a civilian-led rescue database suggests over 50,000 people are still missing. Experts warn that after 72 hours, the chances of finding anyone alive drops dramatically. And the scope of the devastation continues to be.
And like, how do you check all those buildings? There's not enough workers for that. Like when 9/11 happened, um, it was the two buildings, and you could focus all the like the recovery and the aid efforts onto that area to look for people. Um, Now those were huge buildings, and so that created its own issue. But what we have here is we have hundreds of buildings. Like look at all these. There could be someone stuck in any of these. Um, and you don't have enough first responders that go through it all. All the buildings have taken damage too.
Revealed
And
as the days
this is
go
a
on.
terrible
This is
disaster.
new drone video of one of the hardest hit areas in ruins after Wednesday's disaster. The powerful quakes struck within seconds of each other. Authorities say there have been 430 aftershocks since.
430.
The CBC's Katie Simpson leads off our coverage. She has just arrived in Cúcuta, Colombia, which is on the border with Venezuela. Katie, tell us what's happening where you are in terms of facilitating aid.
Colombia, so they're not even in the country.
Well, this is one of several marshalling points that aid organizations are using to sort of facilitate the transfer of aid through Colombia into Venezuela. Even if it does make it through here, we're aware that the Red Cross has sent in a number of convoys of trucks with badly needed supplies. From here to Caracas, it's a good at least 14-hour drive, but it's one of the only reliable ways to be able to get aid into the hardest hit areas. We got an update from the Canadian Red Cross about the $5 million the Canadian government pledged in aid to the victims of this earthquake. That was actually, part of that aid was actually delivered on Friday, we are told by the Canadian Red Cross. It includes blankets, foldable beds, tarps, waterproof tarps, as well as water filtration kits, as well as cleaning supplies. The Canadian government has said it is considering additional support, but that is what is on its way to the people who have survived, who are in desperate need right now. We flew here to the border earlier today, and when you make your way through the airport, we're at the airport very, very early, but it was incredibly busy at the airport in Bogota, and that's because there are so many aid workers trying to make their way into Venezuela. Bogota is one of the transit points, and you can see the aid workers. They're usually wearing their highly visible uniforms. They're carrying a backpack and a helmet, and that's about it. We also saw one of those highly trained dogs
right
will be
away,
heading
right?
into some of the
People
debris
on
areas
the problem.
where they try to detect signs of life, but they're also able to detect if there is a body inside. So those are just some of the efforts that are underway right now. A number of search and rescue crews have already arrived on the scene and are trying to hit some.
So international crews join search to find survivors as number of dead rises to over 1,400.
Get to some of those hardest hit areas, because as every hour passes, the situation becomes just simply more desperate.
So many rescue efforts going on across Venezuela. And as you just pointed out, Katie, it's such a crucial time because the likelihood of finding survivors gets smaller and smaller. Bring us up to speed with some of the other specific missions that are happening across the country.
We're kind of reaching the end of the period where you can expect to find someone alive.
Well, there are a few moments of hope that are emerging as rescuers are trying to detect signs of life. In one of those areas, rescuers were actually able to save a newborn baby. Rescuers were quite loud and then all of a sudden hushed once they realized that they had been able to rescue this baby and pull the baby out and reunite the baby with a loved one who was there. But those stories are becoming increasingly rare with every minute that goes by. We have a freelance journalist who's actually in La Guaira, which is one of the hardest hit areas there. She went into a neighborhood yesterday and said it was complete chaos and devastation. There were no official government crews or rescue crews.
Like, you have a search crew there because you have a survivor that is advocating to, like, oh no, my family is here. And so, like, they're gonna be there trying to go through the debris anyway. And so that's kind of what brings the teams to assist. And the places that don't, like, what if they're all trapped? I don't know. Like, this is such a terrible
is there to help.
disaster.
People were leading the efforts on their own, screaming into buildings, trying.
And like when they say the number of dead, like this is confirmed. What is it, 50,000 or something that it's missing? We're approaching the point where most of them will likely show up dead. Not in any short period of time, because like you're not getting through all that rubble in any short period of time. But as a statistic, that's what will have happened.
To detect signs of life, and trying to find ways to figure out if people are still alive trapped in debris. She went back to that same neighborhood today, the freelance journalist, and she said there was some help on the ground there, a sign that things were getting a little bit better, at least in that specific neighborhood, that there were some emergency crews and some equipment there. But again,
Yeah, like some places are just getting crews to assist, and they're approaching the end of the window you can hope to find someone alive.
there have been widespread complaints about how the Venezuelan government has not been able to meet this moment. After years of corruption and economic mismanagement, the public and emergency services, they are simply inadequate to deal with a crisis of this scale and this scope. And that, of course, that deterioration taking place during the Nicolas Maduro regime, and Delcy Rodriguez, who served as his deputy and replaced him after Nicolas Maduro was seized by U.S. forces earlier this year. But again, there is intense criticism focused at the government as it failed.
Like, aren't we seeing something like this with FEMA right now in the US? What is the current state of FEMA in the US? If FEMA can't respond to a disaster, what else can respond to a disaster in the United States? Because we might, if there's another huge disaster that happens in the US, if like, it's terrible when these kinds of response services are not funded. And then you see something like this where there isn't an adequate response to assist the survivors by the government, because they just haven't set it up. And it would be terrible to see something like that happen in the US.
To meet the basic needs of its people in such a critical.
I thought I was okay. Well, we'll listen to a survivor account. That's not the one we want. Okay. The current state of FEMA. FEMA still exists and is operating, but it's been through a rough stretch, and it's in the middle of the biggest restructuring debate in its history. A few things define where it stands in mid-2026. It's strained but functional. FEMA is managed by more than 300,000 projects across more than 60 open disaster declarations, with a smaller staff having absorbed. Okay, we're gonna go to the end. The honest caveat: the layers above can absolutely run a response, but there's wide expert agreement that they can't easily replace what FEMA specifically provides, which is money and coordination at scale. As one state Homeland Security director put it, states don't have that capacity built to handle a disaster every single year. The National Guard and mutual aid can move supplies and people, but the National Guard isn't designed to provide fast financial aid, housing, or long-term recovery options. And experts warn that a fully state-led model would be uneven. Wealthier states might manage on their own, but poorer states would likely struggle, which is a particular concern raised about smaller and rural areas under the proposed reforms. So the short version, if FEMA couldn't respond, your local responders, state government, National Guards, neighboring states via EMAC, other federal agencies, and the military and nonprofits would still mount a response. Okay, so there's, in the US, there's so many more layers, but it seems like FEMA brings money and coordination to the other layers. And FEMA's definitely taken damage under the Trump administration. What would be the hardest to replace isn't boots on the ground in the first 72 hours. It's the federal money and nationwide coordination that fund the months and years of recovery afterwards. What does the Canadian system look like to respond to a large-scale natural disaster? Is the system getting better or worse? Let's have a look at that.
Monitoring the situation in Venezuela this weekend, where recovery efforts are underway following Wednesday's pair of catastrophic earthquakes. Locals have criticized the government.
This is even further back, right? This is closer to the epicenter. The confirmed cases are only 920 here.
And interim leader Delcy Rodriguez for moving too slowly to get help to the devastated region. Authorities now say at least 920 people are dead as a result of the quakes, with well over 3,000 injured and more than 170 still believed to be trapped under the rubble.
170 people? 170,000? What? Because there's no way it's 170 people, because we've seen that the death toll climb way above that. So is that like 117,000 they think is trapped?
170 still believe.
There's no way. Comments are turned off. Oh, okay.
To be trapped under the rubble.
So we'll get no clarification. Because the last thing I heard was like 50,000 were missing. Okay, I've asked that. I want to get into that next. Let's look at this a little bit more.
That's a survivor being pulled from a collapsed building yesterday. Now more than 48 hours since those twin tremors rocked Venezuela, rescuers are racing against the clock to find more. They're facing a tall order with over 50,000 reported missing so far on a civilian.
So 50,000 reported missing. So that number is still solid.
Civilian-led rescue database. Meanwhile, rescue workers from around the world have started arriving in Venezuela to provide help. The United Nations says it is coordinating international rescue teams and that it would take a, quote, massive collective effort. Canada has also announced an initial $5 million in humanitarian aid, including emergency food, water, and healthcare supports. For a closer look, we're now joined by Santiago Rodriguez Regetti in Caracas this morning. He's the developer or co-developer of a free app that helps residents find family members who have been admitted.
Okay, we're not going to go into that. Let's have a look how Canada would respond. How Canadian responds to a large-scale disaster. The first thing to know is that Canada has no FEMA equivalent. No single national disaster agency that deploys responders. Instead, it runs on a bottom-up shared responsibility model written into the Emergency Management Act of 2007. Emergency management in Canada is a shared responsibility that relies on ongoing cooperation among all levels of government, with provincial/territorial government and local authorities providing the first response to the vast majority of emergencies. Living in Alberta, you've seen this firsthand with the wildfire seasons. This response is run provincially, not from Ottawa. So Canada doesn't have a FEMA equivalent. Okay. Because I always look like, why are they defunding FEMA? Like, there's definitely other ways to run disaster response. Yeah, so I don't know how to feel about that one. Okay. I'll look at this part quickly. So the layered structure works roughly like this: local first, municipal, fire, police, EMS. So yeah, the smaller scale stuff. The provincial or territory. If the municipality is overwhelmed, the province takes the lead. In Alberta, that's the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. Provinces have primary constitutional responsibilities. Okay. 3. Mutual aid between provinces. Provinces share firefighting crews, aircraft, and equipment, coordinate largely through the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center. I mean, forest fires are the most likely natural disaster we see in Canada. It's because, you know, a lot of the north is just trees. So with global warming, wildfires tend to be the only real disaster we see here. The federal government, but only when asked. When an event exceeds provincial capacity, the provinces submit a request for federal assistance. The Government Operations Center, housed at Public Safety Canada. Okay, so the fourth step is the federal government, but only when asked. The 5th, the military is a last resort. This is a key difference from the US. Canada has no standing disaster response force. So when surge capacity is needed, I mean, Canada doesn't really face natural disasters quite the same way as the US. Like hurricanes, the flash floods that we've seen happen down there. Tornadoes, like, generally, like, again, the only real natural disaster we face is from fire. And even that is only in specific areas. It seems like they've set up a system to handle that. Towns are still lost here or there, but for the most part, the response has been done well, in my opinion. But still, like, with global warming, you might want a federal agency that was also assisting in this. We might need to get that eventually in Canada, because as global warming or climate change happens, you see new types of disasters. Like in the US, I remember watching a flash flood, which just suddenly a river, massive amounts of water fell, the river blew its banks, and in an area that was not at risk of floods, or they did not think they were at risk of floods, it flooded and washed a bunch of people away. Like, Canada could be susceptible to something like that. So a national agency might be important. I gotta find a way to get my mic on the other side, so that when I look over here at the chat, I'm talking into it rather than away from it. Okay. Federal money for recovery. Okay, so there is something set up for recovery. This is Canada's main federal level, Public Safety Canada. Okay. The NGOs and Indigenous specific channels. Is the system getting better or worse? The honest answer is both, depending on what you measure. The system is improving on paper and in funding, but the threat is escalating faster than reforms. Oh. Argument, it's getting better. The financial backbone was overhauled, launched in April 2025. The modernization of DFAA expands federal support and focuses on helping communities not only recover, but rebuild in ways that make them stronger, following the most comprehensive evaluation in the program's history. Yeah, because There was a town in BC completely burned. They are in the process of rebuilding it, and now there's a wildfire really close to the town again. Maybe like if you create a buffer between the town and the forest, you can largely, from my understanding, like prevent wildfires from coming into the town. But it is something that like you need a push for, and you need to set up an agency or a group to handle. There's also being real new capacity. Okay. Argument it's getting worse. The disaster load is exploding. Response and recovery has cost the federal government close to $9 billion through the DFAA since 1970, and over 70% of that total was paid out in the last 10 years. Ooh, so disasters are getting worse. I mean, that's climate change, right? That single statistic captures the trajectory better than almost anything. The 2023 and the 2025 seasons were the worst and second worst wildfire seasons in Canadian history. Ooh. And we're facing, what, a super El Nino this year, which is going to cause likely a warmer and drier next summer, which would be 2027. That's dangerous. And the Senate committee bluntly concluded in June 2026 that Canada is facing an escalating wildfire crisis that is outpacing current response systems. Yes, I believe that to be true. There are real structural gaps the experts keep flagging. The reliance on the military as the default surge force is widely seen as unsustainable. The armed forces are stretched and not designed for repeat annual deployments. And there's a sustained push for something closer to a coordinated federal agency. Ooh, see, that's what I think we should do. A coordinated federal agency that manages this, because I think wildfire seasons are going to continue to get worse. I also believe that we can reduce the damage they cause to communities through preparation. Like, that town that keeps getting threatened by fire should be properly prepared to have a wildfire in the area. And coordinating that through a federal agency just seems smart. As communities brace for fire season, experts are renewing their calls for federal emergency management agencies to oversee firefighting resources, with wildfire researcher Mike clarifying that he doesn't envision a federal agency coming in and taking charge, but rather federal funding and coordination to aid provinces. Okay. The interesting contrast with the U.S. It's worth noting the two countries are arguably moving in opposite directions right now. The U.S. debate is about shrinking FEMA and pushing responsibility down to the states. Canada is debating whether to move more federal coordinating capacity than it currently has. To build more federal coordinating capacity than it currently has. Because its province-first model, while it avoids the bureaucratic bottlenecks people complain about with FEMA, leaves it without a national response engine when multiple provinces burn at once. Canada's system is genuinely improving in funding and tooling, but the consensus among experts is that it's still underbuilt for the climate-driven disaster frequency now arriving. Okay. This is a new one. I'm gonna watch this and then we're gonna move on to the next one. strong aftershock rattled rescue workers.
We're getting this video from the president of El Salvador.
I mean,
he says
this
the
is a
man was
dangerous
pulled
job.
out by rescue teams from his country, Mexico, along with Venezuelan authorities. It comes as a magnitude 4.6 aftershock struck north of Caracas this morning. That was the moment here that the aftershock rattled those search efforts. Government says 1,450 people have been killed, more than 50,000 still missing.
We know that so far 33 people have been pulled alive from that rubble. We have seen an infant, a father and son, an elderly woman, all pulled alive from that debris. And each time,
I mean, that's the thing. There's still people alive under a lot of it, probably, which is why it's so important to get the rescue workers there quickly.
and those images of those miraculous rescues giving a little bit of hope to so many Venezuelans who continue to face the effects of this disaster. And there are still family members who are hopeful that their family members may be alive under that rubble. We heard experts talk about a 72-hour window of opportunity to rescue folks. That point has passed. But this was a public holiday in Venezuela when these earthquakes happened, so many people were in their apartments. So there's hope that some of those folks would have had access to drinking water. And with that, they could survive for even longer. Crews are, of course, they're trying to work fast. First of all, establish communication with those folks who are inside that rubble. They're using all types of specialized equipment. We have seen them sliding special
That dotted shirt is incredibly distracting.
cables through the crevices
That
in
doesn't
that
go
rubble
well
to establish communication with
screens.
those folks who are still inside. And we know that crews, they continue to arrive today. I was at the Bogota airport last night, and they were arriving here on layover, planning to head to Venezuela. So
Yeah,
still
like we don't have an embassy in Venezuela, right? Like we have. Let me finish.
some hope there with the arrival of these crews that they can find some survivors under that rubble.
Like it was a dictatorship. We largely cut ties. Does Canada have an embassy in Venezuela? Let's see. Which, I mean, when you don't have an embassy, you can't. The government method isn't really there. Technically, Canada has an embassy building in Caracas. Oh, but it isn't operating. The embassy of Canada to Venezuela in Caracas has temporarily suspended its operations, and Canadians obtaining consular assistance from the embassy of Canada to Colombia and Bogota, which is why a lot of things are going through there, because a lot of places kind of closed their embassy, and that is like that's where you coordinate stuff in another country. If you're sending aid, you would coordinate it through your embassy there, and so that's why Bogota is where they're gathering to go into Venezuela. Background: Canada and Venezuela have not formally severed relations, but Canada closed its Caracas embassy in June 2019, saying Venezuela would not renew aspiring visas for Canadian diplomats. Oh, well, that makes sense. Why you'd have to close it. That happened while Ottawa was co-leading efforts to recognize the country's opposition as its legitimate government rather than Maduro. Oh, so the whole Maduro issue. Maduro's gone now. Like, can we have better relations there? It would have helped for this. Sending aid.